Term 1 Literacy and Numeracy 2018 was crazy. It was chaotic, attempting to time manage those tasks like my word sense and where I put guided in and how I did my independent activities and trying to get the children to be settled while we were doing independent activities was tricky. But I was sharing. I did have a partner in my class that I shared with, and she assisted me in making sure that that literacy block or the numeracy block was planned. It was, put into time frames so that I could get better at those things.
Yeah, and I know the same. Mine was chaos. First term was chaos. Fitting in all those things into that literacy or numeracy block, like you said, Steph. Word sense, writing, reading, everything. But the big struggle that I had is that guided time, the time where the kids are independent and you're trying to work one-on-one or 1 to 4 in groups. We really struggled. Our particular cohort wasn't very independent, so we had to do a major restructuring of that, and that was hard because then we had to set all new rules and expectations, and it took a long time for them to get settled into that. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the biggest challenge for me in those literacy and numeracy blocks was definitely the setting expectations. And setting expectations for myself, not to start guided groups straight away in term 1, and to really take the time to teach them how to be working independently, teach them how to move to those centres after they've finished our must-do, which is what we decided to do, and then for me to practice sitting there and not being interrupted. So I would sit there at my guided table and do nothing, and I'd have my do not interrupt me ears on, and they would not come and see me, and we practiced that for weeks. And I didn't do that in the first few weeks, and then I lost them, so I had to do that again in week 5 and 6 of term, and I had to really be strict about structuring those expectations.
I was the same. Setting the expectations, making sure the children know exactly what they're doing, that was the hardest thing, because I would rattle off all these instructions and then I wouldn't check to make sure that those instructions were clear to the children. I often assumed that they would know what they needed to be doing because I knew what they needed to be doing. So making sure that I told them exactly what I needed them to do, when I needed them to do it, and then also making sure that when I was doing my guided group, I would say, no, you are not allowed to speak to me during this time. I am working with these students. How would you like it if another person interrupted your group when you were working with me? So making sure that they knew exactly what was expected, and then managing that time so that we didn't leave them, or I didn't leave them too long during that time. So I only started to feel confident in my literacy and numeracy blocks probably towards the end of term 2. I kind of sat down, I had done a plan, I had timed everything out, and I had practiced and practiced and practiced for term 1 and term 2. And it wasn't until then that I went, okay, I know what I'm doing and I have the confidence to do it. I always knew that I had to do something, and I always knew that I had time frames, but I never had the confidence until I practiced and practiced and practiced and set boundaries for myself so that I knew what I needed to do, when I needed to do it, and I was really strict on myself rather than just being strict on the kids with time frames. I was strict on myself.
Yeah, that's the same as me. Probably end of term 2, even into term 3 was when I was really confident. I had the idea of what I was doing in those guided groups. That was something that I was working on, and what was I teaching them in those guided groups. But I felt confident enough to do that guided group, and that they would know what they needed to be doing and they would be on task. And I felt confident that if they didn't know what they were doing, they knew the routines and rules into what, the 3 before me, or asking a friend and those kinds of things. So probably end of term 2, term 3, which probably was a lot later than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
But I had to let that go a little bit and go, well, now I'm confident, I'll just do it from now. So I really think what helped me develop my confidence was practice, practice, practice. So doing it every day helped. Talking to my mentor, I was lucky that my mentor was my grade partner and she was very experienced in year 1. So talking to her constantly and using her ideas and programs to help me program my own made me feel confident. And also I had instructional coaches come and I would ask them to lead a guided session, and I would observe that lesson, and then I could say, oh, that's how you do this, this, this. I wasn't very confident with teaching guided writing, so I'd ask them to come in and teach that. That helped me develop my confidence a lot.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I had a fantastic mentor who was also my grade partner, and I would ask for advice And then her biggest piece of advice that she gave me during my literacy and numeracy blocks was be kind to yourself. You haven't been handed a class that has 0 behaviours. You haven't been handed the perfect class, because no one ever is. And she just said, be kind to yourself, set yourself expectations. And it was when I set those expectations and then practiced adhering to those expectations that I'd set for myself that I realised that my confidence was growing.